a little bit of a classic rock thing happening today. This is, I'm going to talk about The Who. Who's next? I haven't talked about The Who yet, so you know this is going to be extra long. It's probably going to be maybe 26 minutes instead of the average 20, because I'm going to talk about my history with The Who. And it's very long, but it's not very deep. I'll start with saying that I could almost make the case for The Who being my first concert ever, which I didn't actually physically go to a Who concert. But in 1980, it was December 81 or 82, when The Who did their farewell tour. And I think The Who was the first band to exploit the whole farewell thing and not really being farewell. So The Who were doing their farewell tour in 81 or 82. And the last two shows of the tour and the last two shows of their career were going to be at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. And I lived in Toronto at the time. And the last show, and I think it was on a Friday night, was going to be broadcast live. It was called a simulcast. It was going to be broadcast live on City TV in Toronto. At that time, it was channel 79, later to be channel 57. They were going to broadcast it live. So I went to my friend's house, this guy called Dwayne Frank. He lived right down the street from me. My mother and his mother were good friends, and Dwayne and I were friends. And so I went to his house to watch The Who concert, and I watched it. I loved it. I had known about The Who at that time, you know, in 81 or 82, whenever it was. I didn't have any Who records, but I had a few singles. I had You Better You Bet at that time, and maybe I had Athena. I think I did have Athena. And of course, I knew the classic rock staples that were played all the time on the radio back then, because I used to listen to the radio a lot. A lot of those songs are on this record that I'm going to talk about. And so that was my first real history with The Who. Also notable, I think anyway, The Who was the first band t-shirt that I ever had. And that was also around the same time I had a Who, it was one of those, I guess they called them raglan style, you know, with the 3/4 length sleeve. It was black with the white 3/4 length sleeves. It was the cover of It's Hard, even though I never had that album. I was a poser back then. Maybe I still am. And I bought that at a record store at Cedar Brae Mall in Toronto, in Scarborough. And so not Kiss. It wasn't Kiss. I'd been into Kiss at that point for 5, 6, 7 years, but didn't have a Kiss shirt until 85 or something. So The Who, that was my first rock shirt ever. Almost my first concert ever, but not quite. And I was never a big fan. I to be honest, I never had this record or any Who record album. As I said, I had a few singles. Never had an album until like 2003, and I'll explain that. So to me, The Who was I was just a very casual fan, and even that is being generous. I did like them way better than the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and the Beatles at that time, but I wasn't a big fan, as evidenced by the fact that I didn't have any Who records. And then in 2003 or 2002, I rediscovered Pearl Jam, who I'd loved from 91, even from 89, you could say, with Mother Love Bone, to about 96. And then I lost track of Pearl Jam, didn't care about Pearl Jam. That changed very, very suddenly in 2002, 2003. And then I started, you know, and I knew about this before, but Eddie Vedder and The Who were, Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam always talking about The Who, and they covered Baba O'Reilly, and you know, they were big Who fans. And I always thought, I don't hear The Who and Pearl Jam at all. That changed too. And I saw Pearl Jam. I saw them several times in the early days. In 93, I saw them open for Neil Young. This was before Versus came out. It was The Who and Soundgarden opening for Neil Young at Exhibition Stadium in Toronto. I went to that show, and Pearl Jam played Baba O'Reilly at that show. So that was my first probably live Who song I ever heard, even though it wasn't The Who playing it. But then, you know, hearing about, and you know, at that time when I rediscovered Pearl Jam, they were covering, I think occasionally they did Blue, Red, and Gray, which I have some lyrics here tattooed on my arm. Yeah, I have Who lyrics tattooed on my arm, from Blue, Red, and Gray, from Who's Next, from The Who by Numbers. And they were also covering, well, they've covered Baba O'Reilly for years. What else have they covered? Later, I think around 2006, they started to cover Love, Rain, or Me. And I I think in the late 90s they covered Let My Love Open the Door, the Pete Townsend song. Anyway, so that kind of got me into The Who, and I bought all their CDs in 2002, 3, 4. I went through and bought all the Who CDs and became a really big Who fan. I discovered them very, very late. Well, I discovered them early, but got into them very, very late. And definitely Who's Next, and I've got it here. It is my favorite Who album. They have a lot of good albums, a couple of great albums, I think. Some not so good, but Who's Next for me, it's the best one, and that's why I want to talk about it. I got this one. Nobody remembers this. Maybe Mike Pratt. I don't know how many people watch these videos, especially watch them all the way through. A couple of weeks ago, I was doing a video and got interrupted by a live Amazon delivery. And I said it was, I teased that it was by a band that I've never talked about before. And it was this one, so just to close that circle. So this is Who's Next. I'm gonna open it now and go through it. That wasn't that long, was it? I think that was normal. I'm probably, about the 7-minute right now? 7-minute mark right now. So I'm going to open it. And I, as I said, of course, I've never had this on vinyl. I only have the CD, so this is a new experience for me. All right, there it is. That's a blurry photo. Was it always like this? Was it meant to be like this? The text of Who's Next is sharp, but the actual photo is quite blurry. There it is. And there's the back, the hype sticker. It seems that this is just a generic hype sticker for the record label, not for the Who. Music on vinyl. This is, I guess, a branch of Polydor. Polydor Music on Vinyl. It says exclusively remastered 180-gram audiophile vinyl pressing. I always like that audiophile thing. Makes me feel important. All the Kiss reissues from 2014, they also tell me that I'm an audiophile, apparently. I didn't even know. I didn't know I had any problems. But apparently I'm an audiophile. So there it is, and it's got one of these. I understand. Oh, this is kind of cool. I don't know if I care about this or not. I don't know if it's got one of these things that opens like this. My Van Halen 1984 that I got from Miguel, thank you again, Miguel, was like this, and I wondered why. And I guess some albums are packaged like this, and the resealable kind of. I don't know if I'll keep that or not, but there is the record. Very disappointing. Look at that. Come on, Polydor, Music on Vinyl, whoever you are, put some effort into it. Nobody wants to see a plain white sleeve. Give me lyrics, pictures, something. The other day I did Paranoid, and Paranoid, when I bought the original record in 1980, it was just a plain sleeve. Well, it was that plastic, this is paper. But at least on the reissue of Paranoid, they wrote both sides of it were a lot of text. That's really bad, no? And I know, yeah, it's about the music, but you want to see something visually. And this is what the record looks like. There it is. So it does look very retro. I'm just seeing an old red record label on a record. All right, so I'll go through this track by track now. This opens with Baba O'Riley, Teenage Wasteland, and I'm sure when I was a kid, I thought the song was called Teenage Wasteland because he says Teenage Wasteland many times in the song. And I guess at some point the DJs introduced it or referenced it as Baba O'Riley, but I always knew it for years as Teenage Wasteland. And oh man, isn't this one of the great classic rock songs ever? Pearl Jam, Pearl Jam does it somewhat regularly. Let's say since I rediscovered them in 2003 and started really going to a lot of their shows around that time. They probably do it at half the shows they play, maybe 40, 50%, somewhere around there. They do Baba O'Riley. This is a great, great song. I like it so much better now than I did when I was a kid. As a kid, I thought it was okay. But I think Pearl Jam, I could really thank Pearl Jam for really making me embrace The Who. Baba O'Riley is a great, great song. It's it's kind of dramatic. It's a little bit epic sounding. It's not like long epic, but it's just got so many different parts to it. It's very, it's very catchy. I think it's a very, very feel good. it's not a happy song, but it's a very feel-good song. Out here in the fields, I fight for my meals. I get my back into my living. You know the lyrics. Bob O'Reilly, I would say, I don't know why I'm comparing these two. I like it better than Stairway to Heaven. To me, those are the songs I remember most from at that time, from the 70s, that I kind of heard on the radio all the time. Bob O'Reilly is fantastic. I don't need the track for this thing. It's Bob O'Reilly, Bargain, My Wife. The Song Is Over. Getting in Tune. Oh, Love Ain't for Keeping. I forgot about that. My Wife, Song Is Over. Getting in Tune. Going Mobile, Behind Blue Eyes. Won't Get Fooled Again. So the second song is Bargain. I call that a bargain, the best I've ever had. I think I probably also thought that song, because it got played on the radio a lot, also probably thought it was called the best I ever had, because he says that so many times. And it's a great song too. This was, there are what, 1, 2, 4, I would say 4 classics from this album that got played on the radio a lot. And I've talked about this before. It's not very cool to say your favorite album by a band is the one that had the biggest hits. It would be like saying the Black Album is your favorite album instead of, Kill 'Em All or something. You're going to lose a lot of cool points for that. But I can't help it. I love this album. So yeah, Bargain is great too. And then, you know what? This album, starting with this next song, this is quite a tender album. You know, The Who is very bombastic, and they're not a heavy band, but they are, of all those classic rock bands, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin maybe was equal to The Who, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. The Who was maybe the most, maybe Led Zeppelin. They weren't heavy, but they were the most rock, I think. And but this album is quite tender, beginning with the next song, Love Ain't for Keeping. It's hard to pick a favorite, and I love every song on this album. I can't believe this album existed for like 30 years before I bought it. Over 30 years. This came out in 1970, 71. 71 it came out. I got it in 2003, I think. So it was 32 years old. Love Ain't for Keeping. Just a beautiful, what a very short song. It's a sweet song. Laying on My Back in the Newly Mown Grass. Laying on my back in the newly mown grass. God, now I can't remember the lyrics. Laying on my back in the newly mown grass. Rain is coming down, but I know the clouds will pass. You bring me tea, say the babes is sleeping. Lay down, my darling, or lay down beside me. Love Ain't for Keeping. Black Ash from the Foundry. Hangs Like a Hood, etc., etc. Beautiful song. It's just, there's a lot of acoustic guitar and just very gentle songs on this album. A little bit of a contrast for how you would expect The Who. But I don't know if I would say Love Ain't for Keeping is my favorite. It's hard to pick one, but I like that one a lot. My Wife is next. This is a John Entwistle song. This is a love song. It's a nice love song. My Life's in Jeopardy. Murdered in Cold Blood is what I'm going to be. Ain't been home since Friday night. And now my wife is coming after me. It's a very romantic song, I guess. In the song, the character, if it's based on a real life experience, was, I guess, drunk and was out with his friends. And his wife got very angry with him. A very fun song. I like My Wife. John Entwistle, he was like, I guess a little bit like Peter Criss. They gave him 1 or 2 songs on each album. Song Is Over. This is one, speaking of Pearl Jam, that I didn't realize until after I got into The Who. I said earlier that I always heard Pearl Jam talking about The Who, and they were a big influence, and they were big Who fans. And I used to think, I don't hear any Who in Pearl Jam's music. Well, when I heard this song, I don't know if it was the first time I heard it, but when I hear it now, when I, got into it, I can hear, in Pearl Jam's music, I can hear, I feel like this song was like an influence, especially it's got that big, Pearl Jam. I talked about this when I talked about Yield a couple of months ago. Songs like Given to Fly, maybe Unthought Known, Lightning Bolt. I don't know, these songs they're just very big and grand, and without being hyperbolic, they just make you feel good. They make you feel like, you're just happy to be alive, and you just want to go outside and scream about how great everything is and how life is. The Song Is Over is that song, and this could also be a favorite. But especially the line, I don't know if it's like a chorus, Pete Townsend kind of sings the beginning of this song, and then Roger Daltrey comes in. And when Roger Daltrey comes in, to me, that's where you hear, the Pearl Jam. You don't hear the Pearl Jam influence. In Pearl Jam, you can hear the Who influence starting with this song. I sing my song to the wide open spaces. I sing my heart out to the infinite seas. It's just glorious, I guess is what that word. I don't know if I've ever used that word before, but probably not in these videos. But the song is over, or I think it's just called Song is Over. It's just a big, happy, glorious song. I love it. And then side 2, Getting in Tune. No, maybe this is my favorite. Really, they're all so great. This is another very tender song. Nice piano. I'm singing this note because it fits in well with the chords I'm playing. I can't pretend there's any meaning here in the things I'm saying. I get a little tired of having to say, do you come here often? It's just a really, really nice, this is not really I don't listen to generally the kind of music that is heartwarming, but isn't Getting in Tune just a beautiful, beautiful song, as is Loving for Keeping and Song is Over. Yeah, Getting in Tune, is it my favorite? I'm not sure. And then at the end, it gets a little bit, kind of a little bit more, as Paul Stanley would say, now it gets rough. A little bit, double time there. Hard to pick a favorite so far. All right, moving on. Next is Going Mobile. I love this one too. This is a Pete Townsend. They're all Pete Townsend written, but this Pete sings lead vocals on this one. I'm going home, and when I want to go home, I'm going mobile. And he's a great singer too. I never get into his solo stuff except for Let My Love Open the Door, and I don't know, a few songs here and there, Rough Boys maybe. He had one of the greatest album titles ever, All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes. Maybe I should get into Pete's solo stuff. But Going Mobile, another kind of a light, breezy, driving song, maybe something like that. Maybe you can hear a little bit of influence in this song in MFC, Mini Fast Cars by Pearl Jam. I don't know. But Going Mobile is great too. Behind Blue Eyes is next. This is the, I guess, the third of 4 classic rock songs, that was played a lot. And this is great too. And for years, I've always thought, especially in that, and this song starts, it's a little bit quiet, but then it gets a little bit, again, as Paul Stanley would say, now it gets rough. The kind of more rough or aggressive part, when my fist clenches, crack it open, before I use it and lose my cool. And if I swallow anything evil, stick your finger down my throat. If I shiver, please give me a blanket. Keep me warm, let me wear a coat. I always imagined that would be a great song for Metallica to cover. I just thought James Hetfield could sing those couple of verses so great. The Hetfield, punch to it, singing Behind Blue Eyes. I think it would be a great song. I know it's not going to happen, but I imagine Metallica covering Behind Blue Eyes. I don't know. And then I don't need to touch the album. The last song is probably their, I don't know if the Who has a signature song. Could be Baba O'Reilly, but I think it's probably Won't Get Fooled Again, which is the last song on this album. It's long. It's at about 9 minutes, 8:31. It's a very long one. It's very dramatic. It's very big. It's a showstopper. I think it's almost like the centerpiece. And I didn't mention my Who live history. I did finally see them live. Brackets from this album. I was supposed to see them in 2006. I just moved to Mexico, and shortly after I moved here, this was when they had just released Endless Wire, which I like that album a lot. And they announced a show in Mexico. I think the show is going to be in February or March 2007. I was so excited. I bought tickets, and it was canceled. Roger Daltrey had throat. I'm indicating throat by pointing here. Roger had some throat troubles, which I think he's had a few times over the years. And it was, I don't know if it was postponed originally and then canceled, or if they were going to postpone it and, announce a later date, but they never did. Finally, they came back in I think it was September 2017, just, 6 years ago. And I was very, very excited to see them. This is all in Mexico City, of course, I'm talking about. And the thing that I kind of have a bad memory about that concert for, my phone got stolen outside the concert. I'd lost my phone a few months earlier when I saw Metallica. Really, if you ever come to Mexico and go to a concert, or anywhere where you're in a big crowd, but especially concerts, really keep a close eye on your phone, because I lost 2 in about 6 months. Stolen right from my pocket. These guys are good. With Metallica, it happened after the concert, so I was able to enjoy the concert and then was sour on the way home and in a bad mood on the way home. But with The Who, it happened shortly before I was going in, and it just put me in a really foul mood. So I mean, I liked the concert and everything, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I should have if my phone hadn't gotten nicked, I guess is what happened. So that was my Who live history. But yeah, I feel like this is almost like a centerpiece of their live shows, and it's got maybe, there's no official ranking unless I say so, maybe the best scream ever. Maybe Bruce Dickinson and The Number of the Beast. I don't know what else. Rolling Stones don't really have screams. The Beatles have a few, but Roger Daltrey in that middle section, you know, right before Meet the New Boss, same as the old boss part. Yeah, there's no way I'm going to, you all know what it is. I'm not going to attempt it, but that's maybe the best, I would say, in rock history. Yeah, and I love this song more than, similar to Bob O'Reilly. I got sick of these songs when I was a kid and a teenager and even an adult, hearing these songs on the radio all the time, day after day for years and years. But now I have a new appreciation for it. This one, Bob O'Reilly, Number of the Beast, even War Pigs. I mentioned that the other day in the last video. So that's it. So that's 9 great songs on Who's Next. This really is a really classic, fucking awesome album. Everything about this album is great, except the fact that there's nothing inside. But the music contained therein is just amazing. And Who had some classic albums. For me, this is the best one of all. And that is all for The Who. Who's Next?